Welcome to the UkeStuff channel and welcome to this full UkeGuide review of this instrument. This is the Mainland baritone, cedar baritone with rosewood back and sides. Now, the UkeGuide ratings are meant to mimic the American energy saving appliance stickers that you see on appliances when you buy them in the United States, telling you how your energy usage is going to be like. And I've mocked a UkeGuide off of that. And you can find those at ukestuff.info, which is my blog. If you look under the UkeGuide page, you'll see all the different UkeGuides for all the different ukuleles, including this one. Now, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to do, first of all, we're going to look at all the subjective categories that I look at with every instrument. Then we're going to look at the specifications, and then I'll summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating out of 5 possible ukuleles. As a side note, or as a foreshadowing, the score isn't as good as the ukulele is, and we'll talk about why that is when we get to the end of the video. Now, if you don't want to hear me talk, you can always go to ukestuff.info and look at the summary sheet, or you can use the chapters to skip ahead to parts of this video that matter to you. It's built off of a lot of suggestions and a lot of studying of other people and how they did reviews, and I wanted to change things up so I wasn't just copying other people, and then provide a lot of information down the road, perhaps as these instruments are available on the secondhand market even when they're not new, although you can still buy these models new. Also, if you want to support the channel, there are 3 things you can do. First of all, you can like the video. Second, you can subscribe to the channel. And third, you can always buy me a cup of coffee to say thank you for making this material at buymeacoffee.com/ukestuff. I also have some other things there, like leather picks that you can donate towards and then receive as a reward. Also, I have my ukulele method that I use in my classroom, the video ukulele method, and my Christmas carol collection of chord melody Christmas carols. I'm working on a hymn collection, but I'm currently in the process of recording those videos, and it takes a while to get those done. So watch for that in the future as well. Or if you're watching this video in the future, you can see if it's there at buymeacoffee.com/ukestuff. All right, let's begin with the subjective categories. First of all is cost. These new are now $380. And as a side note, that may seem like a lot, but it's an all-solid ukulele by a small American businessman who does a lot to help the ukulele community. So it's worth every penny. We'll get to value in a second, but it is a really, really good value. So they're about $380. This one is a little bit less because it was a factory second, and I can't even see where that finish issue was any longer. There was a part here in the finish somewhere where the finish, oh, there it is right there. The finish is a little bit lighter right there. That's not a fingerprint like a lot of these are. The finish is just a little bit lighter there, and it was offered at a discount at Ukulele World Congress. I asked Mike if he had any instruments that were seconds, and he had this one, and I bought it on the spot. I did a review of this. You can find that review, I think, on this channel right there, but it wasn't a full review like I do of this. So this is this instrument's actual first full review after a number of years of ownership. I use this one in almost all of my tutorial videos as my baritone. I also have a flight, and I also recently bought a sort of very junky old baritone that I'm considering fixing up. Not sure if I want to put the money into it though. So this one does carry the brunt of my baritone work these days. Now in terms of value, you're getting a solid ukulele, again, from American vendor that really does a lot to support the community. So I think the value massively exceeds the price. Yeah, can you buy a similar instrument from Kala or Ohana? The answer is sure, but there's something special about supporting Mike and the work he does with these imported ukuleles. So the final assembly is in the USA, but the rest of it comes from elsewhere in the world. Now, in terms of build quality, this again is a second model with only a slight problem with the finish. Other than that, it has been a wonderful ukulele. It is a gorgeous ukulele. Great job. I mean, it's dirty. I need to clean it up, but this is a player, right, for me. So it's really, really well done. You've got the rope binding on it, rope binding on the headstock. You can choose your tuners and the colors of your buttons on your tuners if you want. I added the strap buttons to it. It didn't have the strap buttons when I bought it. Look at that nice little piece of binding right there. That's really nice on the joint of the sides. Just really pretty rosewood. It's really a gorgeous instrument. And we're not even talking about appearance yet, but that travels down to the build quality. Now, one of the things I do is I use a endoscope to go inside the ukulele and see what it looks like inside there. So I am going to grab my endoscope, and here is the lead to the endoscope. This one will have quite a bit of room to record, which I normally don't have as I'm recording because it is a baritone. So let's go on inside here. All right, so looking down, there is a tail block right there. Over there you can see a brace right over there. You can see the bridge plate there all the way across. Yeah, see those kind of neat braces on the side there of the soundboard? That's pretty cool. There, looking up, you've got your vertical brace running down. You can see the solid cedar top, that pattern in the wood. You can see the rosewood on the bottom. There's that little bit of bracing on the bottom. Yeah, so overall, and if I go a little bit further in, let's see here, you can see that it's a really overall clean build. A little bit of glue right there, no big deal. Very, very clean build. Very, very well done. Now let's look at the upper bout. Okay, looking at the upper bout, again, very clean up here, very traditional build. There's your neck block up there with a lot of extra pieces in it. Overall, it's very clean, a little bit of gunk on that part of the side right there, but again, nothing major, and nobody's ever going to see that unless you stick a camera into your ukulele. Now again, we don't look at the inside just to pick on an instrument or pick on a company. Oftentimes you can see what care has been put into the construction of the instrument based upon how the inside looks. If the inside looks good, then you know what, they've really taken care of building it on the inside. That's going to be true of the whole instrument as a whole. It kind of shows the quality, and you can see the quality here of this Mainland. And that's our brief look on the inside of this Mainland red cedar baritone that was built in November of 2018, if I can aim that correctly. And you can buy these at, again, www.mainlandukuleles.com or mainlandukes.com. All right, so inside, really well done. It appears flawless, and even this factory second, I mean, seriously, that's funny. It doesn't bother me at all, and partially because I'm never seeing it. I'm usually strumming as I'm playing it, so that doesn't bother me at all. And I love the sound of this. We'll get to that later. Now, in terms of appearance, I think you get quite a bit here. That rope binding is kind of special. Not everybody's going to like it. I understand that, but I do like it. It's also very traditional. If you look at some of the earliest ukuleles at ukulelefriend.com, he's got, Sean has a entire, sort of digital museum of some of the earliest ukuleles. Rope binding is pretty common in those instruments. And then look at that. Not only the rope binding, you have the other binding on the sides. That's really pretty. Just overall, the colors work together. This is a really good combination of a good looking instrument. As a side note, one of my still dream to buy ukuleles, which is not that far of a dream. I mean, some of the instruments I have there were far, far more. I would like to get a concert just like this one, so I have a matching pair. And someday my wife and I are going to take a little vacation to Nashville, Indiana, which is a beautiful area, beautiful town. Hilly in Indiana, just gorgeous, where Mike is located with Mainland Ukes. And when we do that trip, I'll buy that ukulele there. So appearance, I think that it's got a few extra things with the binding in its classic style. So I like that a lot. Now, in terms of availability, they're usually available. Mike can usually get them to you. Occasionally they run out and then they reorder and they eventually restock. But this is one of the models that he's been keeping around for some time. In terms of playability, I play a concert ukulele most of the time, so this is a stretch for me in terms of feel. Now, perhaps the neck here could be more narrow. It is a heavier instrument, and it is a little body heavy. But beyond that, it's pretty good. The action is a touch high, and I probably need to adjust that down a little bit. But again, as I don't play baritone a ton, I can deal with it. I can deal with it where it's at. But yeah, the action could be a little bit lower, I think, for my own playing style. But then again, I'm used to playing concerts, and perhaps the action should be just a touch lower on a concert than a baritone. Not totally sure about that. I'd have to ask some more people that just are baritone devoted players whether action should be about the same or whether baritone really, for the full resonance and sound, you need a little bit higher action than perhaps a concert or a soprano. So, in terms of sound quality, you get a much more guitar-like tone, and this model does not disappoint you in that category at all. The sound is loud, rich, resonant, warm, full, but not a lot of overtone. Not a lot of overtone. I should also mention that I'm running living water strings, which are all fluorocarbon, that are sold by Ken in England. And so if you want to order those, just look up Living Water Strings and look up Ken Middleton, and you can order these from him, and he'll ship them across the pond. I think Uke Republic in the United States also carries the Living Water Strings, but I like them far better than the squeak of a fourth string that you get with many, many baritones. So the volume is loud, the tone is very balanced, but there's not a lot of whistling overtones like I usually like with my concerts or so forth of a smaller scale ukulele. Again, much more guitar-like, deep and broad. Not overly dark, but still, compared to smaller instruments, it definitely has more meat to the sound. Now, one of the things I do in these videos is I let you see what I'm hearing by using the app Tonal Energy Tuner. So, opening up that app right now, and I'm going to record myself playing the G chord, the most open chord that I can play, and let you see what's happening with the tonal or harmonic energy series. Here we go. What you can see is that the whole spectrum lights up and it fades almost at the same time. It's a very, very balanced instrument in terms of sound. Maybe I like more sparkle, but there's that warmth with that whole segment that moves together. Maybe the low end fades out the slowest and ends last, but it really does move together as it fades with that strum. Really, really nice, warm, chocolatey sound. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective categories, let's move into the specifications. It is a baritone ukulele with a scale length of 19.625 inches from nut to saddle. There are 19 frets with 14 to the body, but there are no side position markers, and we'll come back to that in the summary. The body style is a traditional double bout. The soundboard is solid cedar, which I love. Cedar is a tone wood. The back and sides are solid rosewood and are gorgeous. The fretboard is rosewood, as is the tie bar bridge, and the fretboard does not have a radius. The nut and saddle here are bone. So there's your nut, and there's your saddle. It is not a compensated saddle. The finish is a gloss. You have a couple options there when you order from Mainland. And the overall length is 30.25 inches from tip to tail, and it weighs 1 pound, 11.2 ounces, so it's heavier than your soprano concerts or tenors, and that makes sense. You're dealing with a much larger instrument. The tuners are closed-geared tuners, and Mainland can give you different color buttons for those. The action at the first fret is a little bit high at 0.75 millimeters, so I could bring that down a little bit. And the action at the 12th fret is 3.25, which is also a little bit high, but then again, that may be more common for a baritone. And again, I don't pretend to be a baritone expert, but I do include baritone in my tutorials and in my play-alongs these days, and have for quite a while, thanks to the influence of P.D. Mac, who plays baritone a lot. So the action isn't terrible, but I think it could be lower, and I may still someday do that. The nut width is basically 38 millimeters. It's 37.84 millimeters across. The spacing of strings at the first fret is 9.12 millimeters between each string at the first fret, which is 30.61 G to A. So again, you get your 38 millimeter nut, which is nice and wide. And the depth of the neck at the third fret is 21.87 millimeters from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck. What that tells me is that it might actually be smaller. If the action was lower, the neck would even appear even more thin. It is C-shaped, but because of the larger nut, it does seem a little more spread out as a C rather than perfectly curved like, like that. It's more spread out like that, which does feel a little bit better in the hand as you play such a larger neck than, for example, a concert. All right, so now that we've talked about the specifications, let's summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating. In the ukulele world, baritone ukuleles continue to grow in popularity and in what you can buy in offers. Kala is now offering a slew of baritones. Flight recently introduced its Aurora. Ohana has its baritone ukuleles. There's a bunch of baritone ukuleles out there now when it used to be a harder category to find. Incidentally, baritone does seem to come later than the other instruments and popularized by Arthur Godfrey, I believe, in the 1950s, who played it, a guitar player who transitioned to playing baritone ukulele. But Arthur Godfrey is also responsible for the popularity of the Macaferri sopranos. So he really influenced the whole ukulele world as a whole, not just baritone, but he himself played baritone. You can see YouTube videos of Arthur Godfrey playing a baritone ukulele. Now, I do have a Flight NUB 310, which is their entry-level baritone, and I use that from time to time to do some tutorials, but really, this instrument is my main tutorial instrument just because it sounds so good. It's also beautiful, and I use this one a lot. Made of solid wood, it looks and sounds amazing, and again, as I said earlier in this video, Mainland Mike Hader, is one of the really, I'll say that 4 times, great guys of the ukulele world. He helps a ton of people. The stories of people that have shared of things that he's done, that he's not looking for applause when he does them. He just does them because he's a good guy. He's friends with many of the major figures in the ukulele retail world, for example. You'd think that many of these ukulele vendors would be at each other's throats because it's a competitive workplace. But in reality, so many of them get along and are friends. It's always been fun to watch the banter and the kidding between like Mike and Mim, for example. Mim's ukes. Mim's has carried, Mainlands. The Uke Republic has carried Mainlands. Things like that. So it's a really interesting world. Mike is accepted by all those people, counted as a friend, and just does great things, and also hosts the Ukulele World Congress in Nashville, Indiana in June of most years. So great guy. Great guy to support if you're buying an instrument. The action here might be a touch high, admittedly. The larger spacing baritone is a stretch for me anyway, as I normally play concerts, but I highly recommend this. Now, with that, there is one big negative, and it's not really the action. It's the fact that there are no side position markers and I get lost. New models may have side position markers. I don't know. Yes, I could have side position markers put on, and I may buy a luthier. This is something I just don't want to mess with. Could I? Probably. I'd just rather let a professional do it that isn't going to mess up the finish and everything when they do it, like I probably could. But that all said, if this had side position markers, the score would be very different. A few years ago, I came to the conclusion that if an instrument didn't have side position markers, it would be limited to a maximum score of 3.5. So as I give this instrument its UkeGuide rating out of 5 possible ukuleles, it's stuck at the very highest it can get without the side position markers, which is a 3.5. That doesn't mean that it's bad, and I hope when you look at the list, or if people look at the list and they see that the Mainland is only a 3.5, that's not because of the instrument or the playability or the sound. No, it's because it doesn't have side position markers, and it really should. So perhaps they do today. I don't know. I haven't been to Mainland for a couple of years since I bought this. But if I do buy another Mainland and it does have side position markers, I'll certainly include that in the review video and talk about that later. Or if you've bought a Mainland and it has side position markers, please put that in the comments below so that other people know that they're now being included as well. I think it does make a difference. I think it does and should impact the score because it impacts your playability as a musician. A few weeks ago, I reviewed a Cala that had a fret position marker at the 9th fret. That's just as bad as not having it. In fact, that's worse than having it none at all because you're not used to that. So no side position markers is better than a wrong side position marker, but it's still not good. So I feel okay with that 3.5. It's given with love of this instrument and knowing that this is my primary baritone. Knowing that I love this instrument and would want to buy a concert to match it. That all said, it still has to be a 3.5 because of that rule, and I think that's a good, fair rule, especially once you get more advanced and you're playing up the neck. You really do need those side position markers. All right, so that's it for this review. I hope you have enjoyed it. This is a great instrument. Mike is a great person, great business. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Even with that 3.5 out of 5, you know that's an artificial cap of its max, but again, it's the right thing to do with that situation. All right, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.